Pre-sentencing proceedings in the high-profile firearm case involving economic freedom fighters leader Julius Malema have been adjourned to April 15 at the East London Magistrates Court in the Eastern Cape, extending a legal process that continues to draw intense national attention. On that date, the court is expected to hear final arguments before determining the next steps in a case whose implications stretch far beyond the immediate legal outcome. As this adjournment prolongs uncertainty, questions continue to mount about what sentence, if any, the court may ultimately impose, and how that decision could reshape both political and legal dynamics in South Africa. Before we go deeper into today's developments, we want to hear from you. Based on everything that has unfolded so far, what outcome do you believe the court will reach when proceedings resume on April 15th? Do you think the magistrate will impose a custodial sentence, opt for an alternative penalty, or take another legal approach altogether? Share your views in the comment section below. Remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel for ongoing updates and in-depth analysis as this story continues to develop. Today's proceedings form part of the pre-sentencing phase in Malema's firearm-related case, a stage that is often decisive in shaping how justice is ultimately administered. While the conviction itself has already been secured, the court is now tasked with determining an appropriate penalty, taking into account not only the offense, but also the personal circumstances of the accused, the broader public interest, and established principles of justice and deterrence. It is within this sensitive and consequential phase that tensions inside the courtroom became increasingly visible. During the hearing, Magistrate Toinette Olivier issued a firm warning to members of the EFF present in court, cautioning that they could be removed if disruptions continued. The warning followed audible reactions from supporters during proceedings, prompting the magistrate to reassert the authority of the court and the importance of maintaining order. This intervention highlighted the challenge courts face in politically charged cases, where strong emotions and public loyalty can collide with the strict procedural discipline required for judicial processes to function effectively. The magistrate's warning was not merely procedural. It reflected a broader effort to protect the integrity of the court in a matter that has become deeply politicized. South African courts are constitutionally mandated to operate independently, insulated from political pressure and public influence. Yet cases involving prominent political figures often test these principles, as supporters and critics alike project broader political meaning onto legal proceedings. Central to today's developments was testimony from social worker Jessie Thompson, whose pre-sentencing report remains a critical component of the court's deliberations. Pre-sentencing reports are designed to provide a structured, professional assessment of the accused beyond the legal facts of the offense. They typically examine background, behavioral tendencies, emotional responses, and the likelihood of reoffending, with the goal of assisting the court in crafting a proportionate and appropriate sentence. Thompson told the court that Malema's conduct during cross-examination is driven by a strong need to be right and a desire to make a difference. According to her assessment, he tends to address issues directly, remaining focused on the matter before him while deliberately setting personal issues aside. She suggested that this approach reflects a personality oriented toward engagement and conviction, particularly in situations where he believes broader principles are at stake. However, Thompson also provided a more nuanced perspective on Malema's behavior. While she noted that he generally remains focused and controlled, she explained that he can exhibit strong reactions when questions of right and wrong, justice, or human dignity arise. These reactions, she said, may at times appear aggressive, especially within the formal and restrained environment of a courtroom. In her professional view, such behavior is better understood as frustration rather than hostility. Thompson pointed to Malema's conduct during cross-examination and his reaction following his conviction as examples of this pattern. She emphasized that these responses reflect deeply held convictions rather than impulsive or reckless behavior. This distinction is particularly relevant at the sentencing stage, where courts must consider not only the offense itself but also the character, mindset, and behavioral tendencies of the accused. From the state's perspective, however, the focus remains firmly on accountability and public safety. Prosecutors argue that the seriousness of firearm-related offenses cannot be minimized, regardless of political stature or public support. The unlawful discharge of a firearm at a public event raises concerns that go to the heart of community safety, deterrence, and the rule of law. In this context, The state maintains that political leadership does not confer immunity, nor should it result in preferential treatment. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere throughout the hearing was described as tense and highly charged. The magistrate's warning, the scrutiny of expert testimony, and the visible reactions from supporters combined to create an environment far removed from routine legal proceedings. While the court remained bound by procedure and decorum, the presence of political symbolism and public emotion underscored how this case has evolved into something larger than an ordinary sentencing process. Outside the East London Magistrates' Court, EFF supporters gathered from the early hours of the morning, many dressed in party regalia, chanting slogans and waving flags. For these supporters, Malema's court appearance is framed not as a moment of retreat, but as an act of resistance. They view the legal proceedings as part of a broader struggle against what they perceive as selective justice and political targeting. EFF leadership has repeatedly characterized the case as an attempt to politically weaken or silence Malema, a figure known for his confrontational stance toward established political and economic power. According to the party, the timing, persistence, and intensity of the prosecution must be understood within this broader context. This narrative has been reinforced by the mobilization of supporters and the portrayal of courtroom developments as symbolic of a wider ideological battle. Critics, however, argue that symbolism should not obscure legal reality. They maintain that public office carries heightened responsibility and that leaders must be held to account precisely because of their influence. From this perspective, allowing disruptions in court or softening consequences due to political status would undermine public confidence in the justice system and weaken the principle of equality before the law. Breaking news from the court has now added further significance to today's events. The pre-sentencing proceedings have been formally postponed to April 15th, when the court is expected to hear final arguments. This adjournment means that no immediate sentencing decision will be made, extending a period of uncertainty that has already lasted months and keeping political and legal observers on edge. Legal analysts note that postponements at this stage are not unusual, particularly in complex or high-profile cases. The additional time allows both the defense and the prosecution to refine their submissions and gives the court space to carefully consider the pre-sentencing report, expert testimony, and relevant legal precedents. It also underscores the weight of the decision the court is being asked to make. Importantly, pre-sentencing proceedings do not automatically result in imprisonment. South African law provides a range of sentencing options, including fines, suspended sentences, and correctional supervision, depending on the circumstances of the case. However, the seriousness of firearm-related offenses means that a custodial sentence remains a real possibility, one with potentially far-reaching consequences. A custodial sentence could have direct implications for Malema's political future, including his leadership role within the EFF and his standing within broader political structures. While legal thresholds govern formal disqualification from public office, the political and symbolic impact of such a sentence would extend well beyond statutory provisions. Within the EFF, Malema remains a central and unifying figure, and any development affecting his ability to lead would reverberate across the political landscape. As the case moves toward its next phase, it continues to highlight deeper tensions within South African society. The intersection of law, politics, and public perception is rarely straightforward, particularly in cases involving high-profile figures. Courts are required not only to apply the law, but also to demonstrate independence, consistency, and fairness under intense scrutiny. For Malema and his supporters, today's developments represent another chapter in what they view as a prolonged political struggle. For the state, they form part of a legal process grounded in statutory obligation and concern for public safety. For ordinary South Africans, the case invites reflection on accountability, judicial authority, and equality before the law. As April 15th approaches, attention will once again turn to the East London Magistrates' Court. The final arguments heard on that date will shape the next stage of a case that continues to resonate far beyond the courtroom. Whether the outcome results in a custodial sentence, an alternative penalty, or further legal challenges, the implications will be significant. For now, proceedings have been adjourned, supporters remain mobilized, and the country waits. The decision still to come will not only determine Julius Malema's immediate legal future, but may also leave a lasting mark on South Africa's political and legal history.